As the NHL season enters its final few days, we're going to sum up the season, talk about some potential award winners, and look ahead to the playoffs. We've got all that and more on this week's NHL Squad.
You are talking puck with the NHL Squad Show, sponsored by Game Time. From the Oilers to the Stars, Golden Knights, and the Panthers, the Rangers, Avalanche, and yes, even the Maple Leafs. The Locked On Podcast Network brings together all its local experts to provide the scoops, breakdowns, and comprehensive looks at all the NHL, with plenty of trash talk to go with it. Don't miss the hard hits and glove-dropping hot takes on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. It's time to drop the puck.
I'm Gil Martin, and welcome everybody to this week's episode of the NHL Squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another wild week across the NHL. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I want to welcome our panel this week, Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild and Shukri Wrights of Locked On NHL Game Night. And gentlemen, regular season, just a few days left to it. So I wanted to sort of put this open to the floor. Give me your biggest surprise pleasantly this season, team-wise, and your biggest disappointment.
Well, I can start with one that is very close to my team of coverage, the Minnesota Wild. As far as disappointment goes, with all the hype, all the money poured into free agency, all the acquisitions, it has to be the Nashville Predators as the most disappointing team this year. They had so high expectations coming into this year. You get Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault to add in with Roman Josi, UC Saros, a team that a lot of people expected to not only win the Central, but to be one of the top couple of seeds in the Western Conference. And they're on the exact opposite side of the standings, a team that so mightily to score goals this year. And there are no easy answers for what to do, because that is a very top-heavy roster. They have sent out several prospects to try to pull in more win-now pieces. I don't envy Barry Trotz having to try to figure out how to clean that up. And Andrew Brunette is a great coach. I don't know what it means for his future. I know I've been kind of keeping tabs on Locked On Predators a little bit. That's going to be a fascinating offseason to watch for that Predators team. And as far as surprises go, I think maybe the easy answer is I don't want to say easy answer, because I don't know if anybody expected them to be this good. I'm actually going to take a little bit of a left turn, and I'm going to say the Ottawa Senators, putting themselves in position to make the postseason for the first time since 2017. A fan base that is so desperate for postseason play and postseason heroes to finally get the one thing that was holding them back situated, the goaltending. They're a team that could go in and make some noise on the road for sure. So I know Washington might be probably the number one answer as far as surprise teams go, but I'm definitely going Ottawa Senators.
I love what you said about the Ottawa Senators, because I've been talking about this for what feels like almost an entire week now, in terms of the goaltending between Linus Ullmark and Anton Forsberg. I think right now that is one of the absolute best goaltending duos in the league. If you can disagree, you can agree to disagree, that's your choice. But I think their goaltending is probably the biggest reason why Ottawa is in the position that they're in. And to just take two steps back a little bit, I want to answer on Gil's question. Disappointment and surprise for me in this NHL season so far. I want to start with the disappointment, and this one is going to perk up a lot of ears. But for me, I just feel like Vancouver took a big step backwards this year. And the reason is because after last season, after getting to round number 2 against Edmonton, I thought that this year they were build off the success they had last season, and it's been anything but. You have major questions surrounding Brock Besser, what his future is going to look like, and as well as Elias Pettersson and so forth. People have been unhappy with both players in Vancouver, and I just think that if you're talking about the Vancouver Canucks being a disappointment, I think they certainly have to be in that conversation, because I think everyone could say that Vancouver was penciled in to be a playoff team. It's not a lack of talent on this roster, but for whatever reason, things have gone south, and I think all eyes are certainly going to be on Rick Tocchet, the head coach, not in terms of him being on a hot seat, but in terms of him, and as well as in terms of the front office. What is Jim Rutherford going to do? What is the front office of Vancouver going to do? So for me, the Vancouver Canucks are up there in terms of disappointment. Surprises. Oh, man. I'm going to go in terms of NHL surprises this year. A team that I personally did not foresee to really be a surprise, whether it be contention or just an overall better approach. I'm going to go Toronto Maple Leafs. And I know lately a lot of people have been like, well, you've been on this Maple Leaf train like a lot recently. What's up? I'm like, here's the thing. I've been watching a lot of Maple Leaf games this season, more so than I have in the last couple of years, obviously being a diehard Bruins fan. But haven't been making a much more conscientious effort to watch the entire league as a whole. I've been heavily bullish on the fact that I like seeing teams make adjustments in terms of structure, how they're defending in their own end, how they are forechecking, and so forth. And what you've seen between Sheldon Keefe and as well as Craig Berube is night and day in terms of the structure. And it's not a coincidence that what you're also seeing is an increase in quality goaltending from both Justin Wohl and as well as Anthony Stolarz as well in net. So for me, I would say Toronto, not because they're a playoff team, no, but defensively and the structure has given them a much greater chance to be successful. And I really do think they could make some noise in the playoffs this year.
I think they could. You mentioned Vancouver. If you're talking Vancouver as a disappointment, I got to go with the Eastern Conference equivalent, and that's the New York Rangers. Going from the President's Trophy winners to out of the playoffs in 1 year. And the reason I sort of connect Vancouver and the Rangers, those are two teams with, you look at the roster, the talent is there, but they imploded. They self-destructed. There was something in the locker room. There was something about the chemistry, whether it was the coach, the front office, the players, a combination of those things, where those two teams just imploded and self-destructed. And I mean, even if you didn't expect the Rangers to win the President's Trophy again, I don't think anybody really predicted them to be outside the playoffs this year.
I couldn't agree more. And Gail, also to your point, how many of you honestly thought that all four U.S.-based original six teams would not make the playoffs in the same season?
Yeah. That doesn't happen very often, does it?
It's never happened in the history of the NHL.
Well, it certainly didn't happen before 1967. So
And the funny part too is like you look at a couple of those teams. Some may say Boston was a disappointment this year.
Yeah,
but you could kind of you could see kind of coming down the mountain if you're on the roller coaster and you're kind of coming down the hill. You can kind of see that coming. Like Pittsburgh, same way. Is you could just see some of these signs from the end of last year that they're going to maybe be sliding down the mountain a little bit. But Vancouver, especially, that Pettersson, JT Miller were not fighting, we're fighting. That hung over that team. Yeah. It wasn't even like a rain cloud that followed the team.
Dark cloud.
It was a fog that
was
just
a solar eclipse.
It permeated the locker room. It permeated on the ice play. And it's amazing how one little thing like that everybody insists is not an issue can just torpedo an entire season.
And it did. And then, other teams that I would include in the pleasant surprises, you got to go with Columbus, Calgary, Montreal. These are teams that nobody expected much from, and especially Columbus. I mean, they may not make the playoffs, but what a great story they've been all year.
Yeah, and
what if they do?
as a Dean Evison supporter from his days in Minnesota, figured that he would be a guy that could kind of rally that team together. Obviously, incredibly tough circumstances with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau, but he was exactly the type of coach that they needed to just rally everybody together and to get that team playing for each other and even in position to make the playoffs is an incredible accomplishment.
No question. And, you never know. That's one of the beautiful things about the NHL. There's always surprises, good and bad, every season. We've got more to get to here on this episode of the Squad Show. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe some of the possible major trophy winners, who deserves to win some of those. We'll have that plus a playoff preview coming up next on the Squad. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You could track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com's code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So, first of all, before we get to the trophy winners, guys, how about the biggest story? What do you think was the biggest single story of the year in the NHL this regular season?
Ooh, single biggest one. Man, oh man. There's so many of them, actually. That's why it's hard to pick one. Seth, you want to give it a stab? Because I'm still trying to pick one. It's hard.
I'm going to go with the most recent, that being the great chase by Mr. Alex Ovechkin. And let's just think about how this year started. And there were concerns as to whether or not Ovechkin was even going to be able to get this done in the regular season. Because Washington, they weren't a great team last year. And you kind of got to the point where you're like, well, are they just going to be kind of trying to get him this when they're not going to be in position to be a playoff team? And they got so hot out of the start. They got so hot out of the gate. Such a great season that they've had. And it all of a sudden got to the point where it's like, hey, he could do this year. And let's not forget, he broke his leg. He broke his leg during the season, and he still is having one of the best seasons of his career. Maybe not necessarily from like how many goals he's scored, but just how he's looked and what he's done for this team. The fanfare around it, the presentation after it happened, I thought the NHL nailed it. And I think it was just a really, really fun and really great passing of the torch from Gretzky to Ovechkin. So that is the number one story of the season for me. And it was one that at the beginning of the season, we're like, is he going to need 2 seasons to get this done? Like, are we going to actually see this happen? And credit to Ovi, all that incredible peak physical condition he keeps himself in, led to him being able to get it done here this year.
As for yours truly, as I was making a facial expression a little earlier during the ad read, because Montreal tied it up against the Blackhawks at the time of this recording. So this is happening live during the recording. For me, it was not a particular player, not a particular team. It was actually the Four Nations and the success of the Four Nations tournament. Because listen, like Alex Ovechkin's like surpassing Wayne Gretzky as the most goal scorer in the history of the NHL. Sure, no question. No argument there. But are you talking about in terms of league wide, in terms of for the sport in itself? Man, oh man, the Four Nations tournament and the success of the tournament has sparked such a broad level of debate here in the States, where you're talking about like ESPN having conversations on their main day like timeline shows like First Take that you normally don't ever see. You got PK Subban going up against Stephen A. Debating about NHL versus NBA. This was like a cultural phenomenon, because we know the pecking order of sports here in the United States. I mean, hockey is not number one, but is it number 3? I would say so, absolutely. But at the same time, it's like, heck, now I'm willing to go as far as to say that the Four Nations in itself has created so much of a buzz that hockey has more eyes than it has had, probably more than ever before. I'd say it's even more successful and more popular than Major Baseball right now. That's what the Four Nations did for hockey in itself. So for me, it's the Four Nations tournament.
And to your point, I think most people did not have high expectations going into that tournament. I was like, well, maybe I'll watch a period or two to see what it's like, but I'm not going to be glued to my television for this. And then as soon as I watched a period, I'm like, I'm not turning this off. You know,
that's such a great take, because not only did it grab the diehard NHL fans, which it was going to anyway. It pulled fans from other sports. It pulled athletes from other sports. 100% right that it was on the national stage from a talking point perspective. Like, this turned everybody's head, and all of the failings that other all-star games have had over the last 10, 20, 30 years. The Four Nations face-off is the first step in the right direction for an all-star competition since Major League Baseball said, hey, we are going to make the all-star game determine who has home field advantage in the World Series. That it is the biggest thing since, and that is that is exactly why everybody was glued to those games, is because they just took the competition to another level, and it was fantastic.
And absolutely, and also to that point in itself, because when the book closes on the 2024-2025 NHL season, I have to say that for me, that when you look back on it, the thing that I'm going to remember most about the tournament, obviously the championship game between USA and Canada, but if you had to pick a singular moment, I think you guys already know where I'm going to go. 3 fights in 9 seconds between USA and Canada in Montreal. That game and that moment it was more than just hockey. It got the entire sports world like, holy crap, what did we watch? This is incredible. Like, when you have some of the most popular athletes in the world tweeting during the game, like, are you watching this? That, my friend, is called the NHL is hot, the NBA is not. So therefore, Gary Bettman realizes now that the NHL is got to strike while the iron is hot, and they're doing that. Because now, my God, and I agree with the point about the biggest thing you can do in terms of an exhibition game or platform and whatnot in any pro sport, I think this is it. And so much so to the point that if you said to me a year ago that it'll be a debate between whether the NHL should keep the Four Nations or return back to the All-Star game format, there was actual debate for a good couple of weeks after the tournament. So in conclusion, the Four Nations, man, I think you got a whole new galaxy of fans who may not have been passionate, maybe they know casuals and whatnot, but this is it. But this was it.
And to tie both of your examples together, the fact that you had Ovechkin passing Gretzky about a month and a half after Four Nations gave those new hockey fans something to appreciate about the history of the game as well. And I think it really was a win-win for the National Hockey League.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. Yeah. And I think Seth may have either froze or he just may have got a little camera shy. But now he's unfrozen. But man, like, I think the Four Nations in itself, I think 5-10 years from now, we're going to be looking back on that on that particular time period in the NHL. That, man, you know what a tournament this was. And it certainly changed the trajectory of the NHL for the better, especially in the United States. Because what was the talking point going into the tournament? Who had become the world's hockey superpower? Canada or United States? And some people scoffed at the United States. I'm like, no, the United States, in my opinion, has actually caught up to Canada. Canada has been long withstanding number one for a while, but the United States, you saw the talent that the United States team had. They were right there. And that the championship game, hell, it even went to overtime in itself.
And let's not lie, the regardless of how you feel about politics, the tension between the United States and Canada now just added to the sauce. You know, that you just add that to the mix, and it put another level of intensity on all of this, that you just didn't expect 6 months ago. So
yeah, what was the statistic they used? That it was the highest rated non-Stanley Cup final game viewed since it was at least 2016. It was either 2016 or 2014. So you're talking about almost 10 years.
Yes.
And we're doing this during the middle of the season, and that many people are still tuning in to watch.
The dog days. It was right in the middle of the dog days when everyone's kind of tuning out. So yeah, absolutely. All right, more to get to here on today's show. We're going to look ahead to the playoffs, talk about what we can expect there. We've got that coming up on the Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's $250 in bonus bets. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets. All right, playoffs are starting really soon, just a few days after this episode gets released. I want to limit it to teams that have clinched a playoff berth. So we're going to keep it there. Who do you think has the best chance of pulling off a major upset in the first round?
I got one cooked up already.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh man, why me? I should have kept my mouth shut. But I did. But no, but in all seriousness, the team that right now has the best chance to pull up an upset based on the teams who've actually have clinched. Oh man. I'm gonna go in the Eastern Conference and I'm gonna go Ottawa. Because goaltending. Because right now, if it's in fact going to be a battle of Ontario, would it be like Toronto versus Ottawa? Who's got the advantage in that? Ottawa. I mean, between Linus Ullmark, who's just barely 2 years removed after having just won the Vezina, and Forsberg, who's been a pretty darn good backup goaltender in Ottawa, I like their chances. But also in terms of the young core in Ottawa that have yet to experience playoff hockey, Tim Stützle, obviously the captain, Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, and like just up and down, like Batherson, like just everyone. Like I just feel as if that Ottawa's got the chance to pull up a upset in round number one, and plus obviously Toronto, if they play Toronto, with the stigma of they are usually first round exits, they can't get out of the first round. But Ottawa, they're just built to surprise some people on advancing into the round number two.
Because they haven't clinched yet. I think it is Ottawa, because I think the Senators finally have the goalie that can walk into an opposing building and steal you a series. Yes. And that makes a ton of difference. Just ask the Minnesota Wilds the year that they were the number 1 seed in 2017, heavily favored against the St. Louis Blues, and Jake Allen stepped into that series and completely stole it for the St. Louis Blues. You got to have a goalie that can go in on the road and can limit the home team's opportunities, quiet their crowd, and allow you to execute your toil while their fans get frustrated. Linus Ullmark's the guy to do that. And it feels like this Senators team has risen above just hey, we're happy to be here. We're happy to be here for the first time in X amount of years. They've risen to the point where it feels like they can make some noise.
All right. Which series are you most looking forward to seeing? And does that include the 4th straight year of LA Edmonton?
Oh boy. I'm cooking. I'm cooking tonight. I'm cooking.
I'll give you this one. And it's because of the Mikko Rantanen angle. This is the year that I am glued to Dallas, Colorado, because of that very thing. This is a series we've seen previously, and they're two very good teams. And they're two Central Division rivals. But Mikko Rantanen on the other side going into Colorado wearing the Dallas colors. Are you kidding me? He is going to get booed off the ice when he's there in Colorado because of how he left. Doesn't matter what he did as a member of the Avs. The fact that he went first to Carolina and now to Dallas, coming into Colorado territory, that series is going to be spicy.
That's a good series even without Rantanen. It's even better now.
I was actually going to go with Dallas, Colorado, but I think also if I had to like pick one right off the bat that I'm most looking forward to seeing based on the teams that have already clinched, man, I mean, I really was going to go. I'm going to go with Colorado, Dallas, because I mean, Kings and Oilers, sure, revenge, maybe. But that series has got so many juicy storylines, in my opinion, that I think that you right now, if everything aligns right, for me, this may be the series you may see two of the very best defensemen in the sport face off against each other in Cale Makar, and if he's healthy, Mira Heiskanen. That in itself is must-see TV. If he's healthy, that's going to be one hell of a matchup. I mean, my God. And then to add to that, the question marks surrounding the health of Tyler Seguin, him coming back healthy. Is he going to be ready? I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see how this series is going to shape up, but also goaltending. I like coming back to the goaltending because it absolutely matters. But if you're going to tell me right now that your potential matchup is going to be between Jake Ottinger and Mackenzie Blackwood, I mean, who's got the advantage in that, and that's Dallas. So for me, it's Dallas, Colorado. But there's so many juicy storylines you can pick from that. You just can't go wrong with.
Yeah, I mean, you also got some great, Battle of Florida is very likely to happen. Tampa Bay, Florida. Battle of Ontario is very possibly going to happen. So you got some nice little juicy matchups all up and down. I love the first round. To me, as a fan, especially if my team is not in the playoffs, first round is just like – it's like the first weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament. You could just keep switching channels. There's another really good game on, and after the one you're watching ends, there's another really good game on. And it's just like wall-to-wall excitement for, a week and a half, 2 weeks in that first round. So I am looking forward to a lot of those different series because Stanley Cup playoffs, I will stand by this. There is no trophy more difficult to win than the Stanley Cup. And there is nothing more exciting in sports to me than overtime playoff hockey.
Yeah.
And if it's a game 7,
By far.
Game 7, it's like if you took my blood pressure in the middle of one of those games, they call the ambulance. They take me away because every time you go up the ice, you're holding your breath. Every time the puck leaves your team zone, you exhale. There is nothing like overtime playoff hockey. And who's going to be the hero and who's going to be the guy who makes that one mistake that costs your team a season? I love the pressure. I absolutely love the pressure. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Seth Toupal, Shukri Wrights, always a pleasure talking a little hockey with you. I'm Gil Martin. Don't forget to, well, you know what? I'm going to plug it, Shukri. Thank you for making the Squad Show your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Gil Martin. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to and watching the NHL Squad. We'll be back next week.